Section 9-1 is about the perimeter and the area. Section 9-1, it's about the perimeter and the area in the coordinate plane, which just means a two-dimensional plane. Your objectives are to find the perimeter or circumference per circles of basic shapes and also to find the area of the basic shapes. You're going to want to refer to the graphic organizer with all the information you did from today. The perimeter P of a polygon is the sum of the lengths of all the sides. Perimeter just adds up all the outside edges. So 10 plus 5 plus 10 plus 5 would make 30. In the real world, that's kind of like the fence around your yard. The area, or a capital A of a polygon, is the number of square units that it encloses. So it is all the inside part of the rectangle. If you were looking at the yard, it would be all the grass that's on the ground. For area, you always need to remember to write it as squared, meters squared, or feet squared, or inches squared, or whatever. In your notes, you have these formulas right here. I want you to refer to them and compare them to what you have in your flowchart and use these for all the examples. I'm going to go ahead and change a couple of these. This one right here, you can write 1/2 times base times height, but for a lot of us, it's easier to say base times height and then divided by 2. For perimeter, you can memorize these formulas for perimeter, or you can just remember that perimeter means to just add up all the edges and use that every time. For circumference and area of a circle, notice the main difference. Circumference is 2 pi r, but the area is pi r squared. Notice they all have a pi, they all have a radius, and they all have a 2. But area is the one where the 2 is squared. Area is always squared. Circumference doesn't have it as an exponent. Circumference has it out in front. So that's how I always remember the difference between those two formulas. Okay, this one's just for you to watch. What is the perimeter of the rectangle? Let's find that first. The perimeter just means you add up all the edges. So in this case, it's easy to figure out the distance because you just count. But count the boxes, not the lines. This is 1 box, 2, 3, 4. So that side has a length of 4. This one, count the boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one has a length of 5. This one, you know in rectangles, opposite sides are equal. So this one should be 4 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the bottom one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for perimeter, all we're going to do is add up. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus another 9. Perimeter is 18. 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 4. And of course, you can group that in any order you want, and you will still get 18. Perimeter has to be labeled, and since they didn't tell us if it was feet or miles or anything, we use UN for units, and I don't square it because it's perimeter. Next, find the area. Area equals, in this case, if you look at your flowchart or if you look at your formulas back here, a rectangle, the area is base times height. Base and height are the ones that have a right angle, and in a rectangle, all the angles are right angles. So the base times the height would be, the base of my rectangle is 5, and the height of my rectangle is 4. So I'm going to use those two numbers, 5 times 4, and I'm going to get 20. And it's still units because I don't know what it is. I'm just going to use the generic word units. But since it's area, I'm going to say squared. Area is always squared. All right, so the next one, let's try together. This one didn't give you a graph, so go ahead and just draw a graph right here. Go out to 5. That should work well enough. Hit pause if you need to. And then whenever you're done, click play again so that you can work with me. So this is rectangle HIJK. It has vertices H at -5, 3. I'm sorry, -3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And that is my H. I is at -5, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the left and 2 up. That's I. And then J is at 2, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And K is at 2, -3. 1, 2, 3. And here's my rectangle. course, it's not on graph paper, so it's not perfect. It's just going to be a sketch. So in order to find the perimeter, I am going to find the lengths of all the edges and add them all up together. So it's kind of hard to count the edges here, but still the distance is the same all the way across. So I'm going to count right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 across this way and this way. The distance going up and down is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 this way and 5 this way. So to find the perimeter, all I'm going to do is add up 7 and 5, 7 and 5. And you can group that in your head in any way you want and add it all together. I see it as 7 and 7 is 14. 14 plus 10 is 24. And they didn't tell me what unit to use, so I'm going to just say units. For area, it's a rectangle, and the area of a rectangle is base times height. So I'm going to figure out what my two numbers are for base times height, and then I'm going to plug them in. The base is 7, the height is 5. So 7 times 5, and I get an area of 35, and I'm going to say that it's units squared. Okay, these two are for you to try on your own. So hit pause, try number 1 and number 2 on your own, and when you're done, come back and check your answers. So here are the right answers. Check and see if you got them right. The perimeter was 16 units, and the area was 15 units squared. For number 2, the correct answer was, here's the drawing. You should have tried to make a graph on your own and draw them. And this time you notice that the 5 and the 5 are equal. So the perimeter should have been 20 because it's 5 and 5 and 5 and 5. The area should have been 25 units squared because it's 5 times 5. For circles, you know how to work with circles. You've done those before. Here's the symbol for a circle, and we use the symbol pi. Now, a lot of times people say pi is 3.14, and that's okay, but as we get into higher math, it's more important to be exact. So there's a pi button on your calculator that I want you to get used to using. If you're at home and you're using a cell phone, your screen will look like this, and the pi button is down here. If you have a regular calculator, just look throughout your screen until you find the pi button, and we'll be using the rounding and we'll be using the pi button both. Another way people write pi is 22 over 7. When the information they have is fractions, then they use that for their fractions. Okay, so one to just watch. Finding the circumference. Put your pencils down and just watch. What is the circumference of the circle in terms of pi? Look back to your flow chart or your notes earlier if you need to remember that the circumference equals 2 pi r. That's the circumference. The 2 is in front. It's not squared. So they want me to find the circumference of the circle in terms of pi, and then they want me to find it to the nearest tenth. So in this case, it's 2 times pi times the radius. Look carefully here. 15 is all the way across. Since this is an odd number, when I take the radius, I cut it in half. I'm going to leave it as a fraction because when I leave something in terms of pi, we typically don't like to mix decimals and the pi symbol together. So 15 divided by 2, that's my fraction. 15 over 2 is my radius. So now as I'm trying to simplify this, all I do is think of that as 2 over 1. So the 2's cancel, and I'm left with an answer of 15 pi for the circumference. You'll notice that that's the same as diameter times pi, which is another formula. All right, so circumference, it's going to be inches. Now the second part asks me to do it to the nearest tenth, and the only way to do that is on your calculator. So we're going to try to get exact answers as far as we can, so it's going to be 15 times, and then instead of saying 3.14, use that pi button right there, and then hit equals, and you'll get an answer of about 47.1. The 2 doesn't make it go up. The 2 makes it stay as 0.1. So about 47.1. And that's circumference, so it's inches. This one's a little bit easier because it doesn't have a fraction, so we'll probably just use the regular buttons then. So for this one, the circumference again is 2 pi r. There's other formulas you can use, but some people find it easier to just use the same one over and over again. So it's 2 times pi times a radius of 4. That makes 2 times 4 is 8 times pi, and in this case, it's centimeters. And that's our answer in terms of pi. We left pi in the answer. Now for the circumference to the nearest tenth, we have to use our calculator again. So hit the clear button and do 8 times the pi button. And this time it comes as 25.1. The 3 next to it does not make it go up, so it's 25.1. About 25.1, and it's only centimeters, it's not squared. So what is the circumference of a circle that has a radius 24 in terms of pi? So we don't really need to draw this circle. You can, but they already told us that the radius is 24, and they want to know the circumference. So we're going to say circumference equals 2 pi r. That's 2 times the pi times radius 24. So all we have to do is 2 times pi times 24. You can do that all in your calculator if you want to, or you can just automatically remember what 2 times 24 is. That makes 48. 2 times 24 equals 48. And they want us to leave it in terms of pi. That means they want to see pi written in your answer. So that would come out to be meters. 48 pi meters. So this one says, what is the circumference of a circle with diameter 24? So they changed it up a little bit. This one was radius. This one is diameter. So we have to figure out the radius from that. And I'm going to stick with the same one every time. So circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. So I've got my 2, I've got my pi sign, but the radius of a circle is half of the diameter, so the radius is 12. So I could put in a 12 right here and work it out. 2 times 12 can go together and make 24. Pi stands alone. And then that comes out to meters. Take a minute, hit pause, come back when you think you have it. Okay, so this one, remember, they asked you to leave it in terms of pi, so you should see the pi sign in your answer. And so for this one, it would be pi times 10, or 10 pi feet, should have been your answer. And this one should have been pi over 2 meters. All right, there's probably questions about that fraction one, so let me just show you really quickly. It's 2 pi times radius. That makes it 2 times pi times 1 over 4. Radius is 1 over 4. However, this is the same as 2 over 1, so you can cancel and reduce the 2 with the 4, and what you're left with across the top is pi, and what you're left with across the bottom is 2, and that's how they got that answer. Okay, another one just for you to watch, because this one's different. It's a triangle, and if you look back at your earlier pages, you'll see that the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. That's what we're going to be using. When we're going to try to find the perimeter, we're going to just add up the sides. However, you're going to realize that this one's not quite so easy. This one's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we need to know the length of this side, and there's 2 ways. Some of you remember the Pythagorean theorem, but just recently we also did the distance formula. So I'm going to do it that way. I need to know the distance from E to G, and I'm going to use the distance formula of x2 minus x1 squared, so that's 3 minus negative 3, 3 minus negative 3 squared, and then it's plus y2 minus y1 squared, so it's 6 minus negative 2. 6 minus negative 2 squared. That makes plus a positive. That makes plus a positive. So that equals the square root of 6 squared plus 8 squared. That's 36 plus 64, which makes 100. And the square root of 100 is 10. So that means the length of this side is 10. I'm going to need that for perimeter. I have 3 sides that I have to add up. So the perimeter is 6 plus 8 plus 10, or 14 plus 10, 24. And they don't tell me what unit it is, so I'm going to use the generic term units. Area is actually a little bit easier because all you need to do is base times height divided by 2. So looking at my triangle, I have 3 numbers there. How do I know which one is the base and which one is the height? It's always the one where the right angle is. See this right angle right here? Those 2 numbers are your base and height. So it's 6 and 8. So you're going to do 6 times 8, and then you're going to divide by 2. That's 48 divided by 2, and that's 24 units, but since it's area, you have to say units squared.